That's right, folks. It's another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco. Today, we're going to be breaking down the second week of the preseason and 5 risers and fallers you need to know about before you draft your fantasy teams. Before we do, make sure you follow us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. And, of course, make sure you jump over to razzball.com and get all the information you need to win your fantasy league. But today, the top 10 preseason risers and fallers starting right now. And if you just need a riser in your life, it's Sky Guasco. Even though he half auto-drafted last night on our mock draft, you can follow him at Sky Guasco on Twitter. What's going on, Sky?
Oh, everybody, I'm sorry for letting the team down, huh? Yeah, I was on the road and fell out of service. I mean, there's no excuses there. I did get in just in time to get 2 picks in the very end, but I did listen back on it and was very excited to see the mock draft go the way that it went. A lot of picks I agree with, many picks I disagreed with, but that's why we mock draft, and I was excited about that.
Let's get into it, Sky Guasco. Your TCK pod team is on the screen, as you can see, folks. And the team that got auto-drafted / few picks for Sky was Tyreek Hill, Johnathan Taylor, Josh Allen, Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, JSN, Dak Prescott, Elijah Mitchell, Jamison Williams, Jalen Hyatt, and Tyler Higbee. So talk to us a little bit, Sky, about that team. But also, what's your general thoughts about how everybody did? Is there a team you like to highlight? Maybe someone you're doing a podcast with? I don't know. Whoever you think is best to highlight.
Yeah, maybe somebody at the end of the draft there, maybe in like the 12 spot or something. Yeah, so I'll just blaze through my picks real quick. Obviously, I did auto pick all the way to Hyatt and Higbee. I did actually make those picks. If you look at my team really quick, Bob, I mean, obviously it's a mock draft. It's kind of funky. They do best player available, so it got weird. I would never pick 5 running backs in 6 picks. I mean, that was pretty insane, obviously. So really, I just want to blast through quick and say, here's who the computer gave me. Here's who I might have got with, if not that person. Right off the bat, Tyreek Hill at number 5. Don't hate it. Might have gone Travis Kelce, but I do like Tyreek Hill a lot, so I felt fine with that. Definitely like Cooper Kupp there too. So if I'm on the clock, I might have gone Cooper Kupp, but Tyreek Hill was fine in the first round. Second round, I'm not going Johnathan Taylor. Straight up fading him right now. Things are weird. He's maybe going to get traded, but then they're saying that they're not going to trade him, but they allowed him to seek trading, whatever. The next pick right there, though, Garrett Wilson's the automatic for me at that spot. Maybe Chris Olave as well. Next pick, Josh Allen in the 3rd round. I thought that was extreme value that somehow the computer got there. So I like that a lot. I was okay with it. Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers, Javonte Williams, David Montgomery. Pierce I like the most out of that group, then Akers. But Javonte and David Montgomery, I'm probably not drafting at all. A lot of question marks there, so I probably would have loaded up a little bit more on receiver in general. JSN, this late in the draft, I felt great about, so I like that pick a lot. Backup quarterback, unnecessary in a single quarterback league this early, so that Dak Prescott pick is just kind of silly right there. Maybe take a shot on Dalvin Cook. Our boy, Khalil Herbert could be fun there as well. So I don't like that. And then Jamison Williams missing 6 games. Don't love that either. Probably would have bounced him until later. But Elijah Mitchell, I actually do like a lot. That's a great handcuff pick. We saw down the stretch with the 49ers and into the playoffs. He and Christian McCaffrey more or less saw about the same amount of work. And over an entire season of both these guys, we'll see what happens, which is a reason I have Justin Jefferson as my number 1 guy over Christian McCaffrey. We talked about that last episode. But overall, I thought the team was okay. But that massive running back grip right there of a bunch of dead zone running backs, I just wouldn't have done that. And then Dak Prescott, I wouldn't have taken that late either. But otherwise, I thought it was a good draft there. I thought you guys had some great banter, and it was a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited to get some more of those in as we get to the final couple weeks of fantasy preseason. And then we jump into our Sunday lives. I can't wait, man. It's going to be fun.
And make sure you join us. That Sunday Live mock draft is just a precursor to our Sunday Live Start Sit show. So make sure you jump on, subscribe to the channel, and join us every Sunday before kickoff, folks. We're going to be there for 3 hours answering Start Sit questions, talking about weather, injuries, everything you need to know right before kickoff that can help you set your lineups. That's what we do. But today's show, we're talking 10 preseason risers and fallers. So I got in the lab last night. And I said to myself, all right, let's try to figure out which players are rising and falling based on some of the kind of the preseason usage that we have seen already so far. So I just want to kind of walk through some of these guys. And the first one I want to talk about is going to be Raheem Mostert. So Raheem Mostert in the game, first off, Devin Achane gets hurt. And some of that has to do with this, right? So Devin Achane hurts his shoulder. He's week to week. The other aspect of this, though, is that there's been a lot of chatter early on in the offseason that they want to run the football a little bit more. And I think that makes some sense because, Tua's dealing with the concussion issues. Maybe they want to protect him a little more. Maybe they use the run game to do that so he's not dropping back as much. But Mostert has really taken the reins, and we saw it in the preseason game, and which is just clear as day. When you watch the snap counts, if you watch everything that was a part of that offense, Mostert played 11 of 15 snaps, saw 6 carries, went 6 for 30 and 1. And he played on third downs, which I don't think is probably realistic. I think Jeff Wilson probably will play the third down pass protector role. He's a bigger back anyway, and they probably want to save Mostert. But that goal line conversion is very encouraging. So I think Mostert is a riser. He's someone that I currently moved up in my top 150, close to the 90th overall range. But Sky, I know you're a big San Francisco 49er guy. Mostert's been your guy. What's your thoughts on Mostert? Are you taking him, or are you kind of, over that experience?
Yeah, big Mostert and Jeff Wilson guy. And just to backtrack to last week, Bob, you and I did the recap of week 1, and we sat here and you were a little bit panicked about Achane and like you didn't get a lot of work. And I was like, hey, man, the preseason, the kid's not quite healthy. Let's see what happens next week. Well, he got hurt again. Now it's definitely not looking good. So now I'm willing to wave the red flag here on Achane early. Now, as far as Mostert goes, last year, Mostert and Wilson, both coming over from the 49ers to the Dolphins, Mostert was RB28. Wilson was RB29. And surprisingly, Mostert had 31 receptions to Jeff Wilson's 22. So I'm not surprised, right? Like the 49ers don't throw to their backs too much. Christian McCaffrey's obviously different, but now they run in that same scheme in Miami. I do think that they utilize the running backs in the pass game and more touches to keep Tua healthy and also to bring up that defense so they can go deep as well. So I do expect Mostert to take more of that passing down work. I do like that a lot. I love Mostert and I love Wilson. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek behind the scenes with our group that I root for them for no reason. In actual fantasy decisions, Bob, I can't imagine myself drafting either one of these guys, unfortunately, because the ceiling is middle RB2, and I just think they're going to be low-end RB2, high-end RB3 every week, unless one of them gets injured, which is highly likely, unfortunately, for these guys, but I'm not going to bank on that. So actually drafting them, probably not. But I did like to see Mostert take the reins, so we at least have some sensibility of what this offense might look like in the backfield.
So I currently have him at 86th overall. I moved him pretty significantly, 56 spots higher. I just think there's going to be some early season RB2 weeks for him. I think that he's the lead guy, and he looks so good. I know he's older back, but I just think he's going to be a solid RB2 to start the year. I think it's going to be like Cordell Patterson was last year.
Yeah.
Started the year hot, and then they phased him out for Tyler Algier at some point.
Older back age-wise, right? He was been on like 7 teams. It's pretty famous. He was, booted around until Shanahan got a hold of him. But the wear and tear, Bob, is not there. He's been injured, but he hasn't played and gotten hit too much. And straight up, he's one of the fastest running backs in the NFL, period. I think it was 2 seasons ago. He had the fastest run from any running back in the entire NFL. So dude can play. He's got almost 10 years in the league, about 9 years in the league, but he hasn't had the wear and tear that most of these other guys have. And he did play every game but one last year, which is nice.
So let's jump down to the next one. It actually is Dameon Pierce. And we weren't sure after the first week because Singletary played an every down role, but Pierce came in and he played the first 2 series pretty much across the board as a 3-down back, by the way. He was in there in third downs, played the first 2 drives with CJ Stroud. And honestly, I think he's a guy that I'm going to attack this year. It does not get worse than what happened to him last year. The Texans might not be good. Their Vegas win total is 6.5. They won 1 game when Dameon Pierce was on the roster, when he was playing in the weeks. He was playing. The rest of the season he sat. I think they were 1-11-1. So if you just look at his production in wins versus losses, that 1 game they had to win, he had like 20 fantasy points. So just from that alone, I think that Pierce becomes a 3-down back, a 3-down back, and a solid RB2 this season. I have him at 46th overall. I moved him ahead of guys like Akers, Madison, James Conner, Aaron Jones included as well. And right now, today he's going to 53rd overall. What's your thoughts about Pierce?
I like Pierce a lot. I liked him coming in last year, obviously going to a bad team, no quarterback. In just 13 games last year, he rushed for just under 1,000 yards, bump him up to 15, 16. He gets over 1,000. We're talking about it differently. Just 4 touchdowns last year on 220 carries. Let's give him 250 carries. He's probably at 6, 8 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, completely different running back. His only competition there is Devin Singletary. Not worried about him at all. I mean, third down, maybe, but this guy's a grinder. He played all 3 downs last year. He's going to get the goal line work as well. And I do expect this Texans offense in general to take a step forward. And we keep talking about the 49ers because that Shanahan tree is getting its own roots these days. DeMeco Ryans now, who's the defensive coordinator back in the day for the 49ers, nonetheless running that team. And they also have the former offensive coordinator as well there. So they're going to be running and running and running. I like that a lot. Plus he can catch the ball. I like Dameon Pierce as well. With all this Josh Jacobs, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders, Johnathan Taylor question marks, Rhamondre Stevenson even, Dameon Pierce keeps climbing steadily up in top 15 right now, running backs, Bob, and I don't even want him that high, but I can't seem to kick him out because of everybody else's question marks.
Yep, that's exactly why I moved him ahead of some of guys, and I really like him slightly ahead of ADP. Let's go down to the next player. It's Gabe Davis, and I think a lot of us last year, a lot of people got aggressive on Gabe Davis, maybe even like the 5th round, 6th round, and it didn't necessarily work out. He's very inconsistent, but we're starting to see, by the way, last year he had an ankle injury and then Josh Allen hurt his arm. That kind of coincided with some of the downside with Gabe Davis. But if you start looking at his production on the field so far, he's been an every down player with Josh Allen in the series, 14 snaps with Josh Allen, 10 routes on 10 dropbacks for Josh Allen, 3 targets, only trailed Stephon Diggs. So Stephon Diggs got 4 targets. Gabe Davis got 3 targets. Everybody else got 1 apiece. And it just shows that he's the number 2 weapon on a team, by the way, that could lead the NFL in pass attempts with Josh Allen and how aggressive they are. And that's why I moved Gabe Davis up my rankings. But Sky, what's your thoughts on Gabe Davis? Are you willing to take a shot at him in the 7th, 8th, 9th round this year?
7th, 8th, probably not. 9th, sure. I like Gabe Davis a lot. I definitely was one of the people that got a little bit hosed last year because I took a chance on him and he got hurt and it didn't work out. That happens in fantasy. What I'm most excited about, Bob, is what you're bringing up, which is the potential. Ranked 12th in deep targets, 6th in ADOT among all wide receivers. ADOT is average depth of target, right? So the average of the targets that he gets, what does that yardage look like? Guys like Mike Williams and Mike Evans have huge ADOTs, right? Because they're catching deeper bombs. So is Gabe Davis. So I like that a lot. Josh Allen, obviously very accurate. Love that double coverage on Stephon Diggs. So, if Gabe Davis is my wide receiver 3, 4, maybe a back end flex, I like that a lot. I don't want him as my wide receiver 2 just because of the inconsistency.
Let's go to the next one. It is Rhamondre Stevenson. And so I've kind of had a little bit of a journey with Rhamondre. If you saw him early on, I had him in my 1st round. And I was like, you know what? I think it's a little too aggressive. There could be someone signed. Then Zeke signs, and I drop him into the 3rd round. And I realized watching the game, this guy is going to be a 3-down back in this offense. Zeke's not coming in to spell him in passing downs. That's his role. That's the most valuable. The other thing I liked is that when he was in there, he converted his goal line work, which he did last year too. At a league average rate, he was fine. I do think Zeke will probably get the goal line work. That's what his specialty is. But when I'm actually thinking about it, we saw Tony Pollard last year. If we're going to think about this from a rational perspective, why is it that Rhamondre Stevenson can't produce like Tony Pollard did when he's the 1A? Zeke was still the one when it came to carries last year. I don't think Zeke's going to take over as the primary ball carrier, and then Stevenson's going to get the passing game work. So I bumped him back up into the top 24 in my rankings. I currently have him at 23rd overall. So that's why I have him back as a riser in the preseason based on his usage. But Scott, what's your thoughts on Stevenson? You taking a shot at him in the 2nd round in 2023?
2nd round's a little expensive. 3rd, I would be fine with it. So I probably just won't get him because I think he's going to go in the 2nd round. I'm just not going to do that. I agree. Zeke is not going to be the primary guy. However, he's there. And yes, Zeke has lost maybe a little bit on the tires, but he's still a productive back. He can still get goal line work. I don't love that. What I do like is the player Rhamondre Stevenson in general. So last year, weeks 5 to 16, He was RB13 in points per game. Love that, obviously. And that's about where I've got him right now. I just mentioned Dameon Pierce with the Josh Jacobs coming back, finally getting his contract underway. Johnathan Taylor floating around. I've got those four guys kind of 13, 14, 15, 16 right now, floating around a little bit. I love, though, the third down participation. Last year, Rhamondre Stevenson was third in route participation and third in targets among running backs with 82 targets. Anything over 60 targets for running back is notable in fantasy football. He had over 80. I love to see that there. So I like Rhamondre Stevenson a lot as a player, but I can't get away from Zeke. And, you bring in a guy like, Belichick brings in a guy for a specific purpose. Even if Zeke only gets goal line touches or works inside the 5-yard line and they use Rhamondre for everything else, I think it can hurt him, right? I mentioned James White and LeGarrette Blount as a comparison a while back. LeGarrette Blount had 17 touchdowns one season, and he had like 200 yards rushing, right? That's all they need Zeke to do. He's very, very good at that. So little concerned there. Therefore, I'm probably going to bump Rhamondre a little bit deeper than most people have him, but I do like the player a lot. I'll probably just end up missing out on him because I'm not taking him in the second round.
Just player names. I'm going to give you a player, and you're going to tell me if you take Stevenson or the other player. JT.
Johnathan Taylor right now, Stevenson.
Jacobs.
Right now, Stevenson.
Andrews.
Mark Andrews. Probably Mark Andrews.
Mixon.
Definitely Mixon.
Higgins.
T. Higgy. Probably Higgins.
Keenan Allen.
Definitely Keenan Allen.
Okay. So he's right in that. He's in that bunch. You're probably going to go receiver, probably in that second, third turn there. But that's good to know. All right, let's jump down to the next one. I can't quit him. I'm just tired of it at this point. So he's gonna break my heart. I'm so excited for that week 2 ankle injury that sidelines him.
No.
Good news.
He's already been jinxed. He's been jinxed like 3 years of his career. Let's give him one. Come on now.
So first off, once again, James Conner is a 3-down back, and we saw it in the actual preseason, right? Colt McCoy comes out. Colt McCoy plays a few series, right? But the first 2 drives, he played every single snap, third downs, ran a route every single time, 7 routes. Basically, every time Colt McCoy drops back, he had 2 touches, right? Now, my thing is, something I actually like to see is one thing that kind of gets in the back of my mind is I do think Kareem Hunt is a dark horse to go to Arizona because of his connections to Drew Petzing. I do think that there is something that could happen there. But forget that for a minute. This team is bottoming out this year. They don't really care about winning. They're starting over with Kyler Murray's injury. But the thing I also liked is that I can't even Kateri. How do you say his first name? Ingram. Ingram's first name.
Katarian Ingram.
Yeah, him, that player. He comes in the next series and kind of plays a similar role. What that tells me is, hey, if you take James Conner, just take a last round pick on Ingram. You're going to have a complete workhorse. And by the way, James Conner over the last 3 seasons he's been better in wins on a per game basis. So this guy on a bad team plays a 3-down skill set, which actually helps him because he catches passes. So honestly, I'm not stressed about it at all. And you can get him consistently in the 5th round. And sometimes he falls to the 6th round. I got him in the back of the 6th in the draft in a 12-team league. So I think he's a continue riser. We need to continue highlighting him this season. Sky, your thoughts on James Conner?
Yeah, I like James Conner a lot, and I'm not here to put out your fire, Bob, but I have to stoke my own fires as well. He's just a player I'm probably not going to draft because of the guys around him. Like, I like James Conner himself, but when I look at James Conner and look at the other players around him, I'll probably go elsewhere, or I'll be good at running back by that point and just look at other positions by default. That's what's happened to me in mock drafts, at least when I look at James Conner. Notably, he still has not played in 6 seasons. He's not played a full season. We know that he has injury history. He's had about 750 plus rushing yards exactly over the last 3 seasons. He's got about 200 to 300 receiving yards. 2 years ago in 2021, he was the RB5 in fantasy football, but he had 18 touchdowns. Other than that, 7, 6, 8, right? So I also don't trust this offense, dude. I just don't. I mean, no matter who's running it, even if it's Kyler, I don't love this offense because he's not 100%. Although I do have to throw out some stoke here for you and James Conner. James Conner last year, down the stretch, which is what we remember, in the last 8 games of the season last year, he was the RB4 overall, averaging 17 points per game. Bob, we love that. Anything over 15 points per game for a running back is auto start in fantasy football. In half PPR. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
In half PPR. But okay, bump that because he can catch passes, right? We're looking at 17 to 15 to 20 points in PPR as well there. We do know that when he's healthy, he will take a 3-down workload. He can catch passes. He can block. He stays on the field. I'm not worried about the other rookies right now unless they're going to spell him. One thing, though, we haven't talked schedules very much yet on the podcast. I'm looking forward to get into that myself because I really take that into consideration each season. This isn't a reason necessarily not to draft a player, but it is a reason for me to bump him down my rankings and look at other guys for a minute. At Washington, your New York Football Giants, Dallas, at San Francisco, Cincinnati, at the Rams with Aaron Donald back healthy first 6 games. Bob, I hate every single one of those matchups for the Cardinals and maybe the run game. So he might get work, but I'm not sure they're going to move the ball much, and you probably won't have many scoring opportunities. So just kicking back a little bit on James Conner. I don't hate him, but I think where he falls, I'm probably looking at other players.
So let's talk about this because it's all relative. He's going 67th in ADP right now. It's not even like it's not. I have him in right around 50. Like it's not close, right? So the guys you're talking about is Rachaad White. Would you take Rachaad White or James Conner?
No, I mean, no. These are just running backs I'm not taking in general, but no, I'm not. I would take James Conner over Rachaad White.
That's let's go receivers then because that seems like Lockett. Would you take Lockett or Conner?
Lockett, absolutely.
Same here. Kirk or Conner?
I would have had Calvin Ridley on my team already, but probably Kirk.
Deontay Johnson.
No, I'm a Pickens guy as well.
Oh, hey, nice.
You're welcome.
All right, cool.
You're welcome. See, a little tit for tat. A little tit for tat.
Yeah, you throw you're like the Sour Patch Kid commercial. You first you're sour, now you're sweet. I love it. Every second of that. All right, enough positivity. Let's take a trip to negative town and talk about some fallers. And so Kyle Pitts has been someone, and I think you look at it through a lens, and sometimes you have a thought about a player. And I haven't been high on Kyle Pitts because, number one, last year he was outside the top 20 tight ends on a per-game basis, but the team didn't pass much. I totally understand that. But this season, not only did they add Bijan Robinson, who's going to command targets, but I know people are going to probably call me out for this take. Matt Collins is better than any number 2 wide receiver they had on the roster last year. So their number 2 receiver is going to now command more targets than anybody else. Then Drake London's no longer a rookie, okay? We're still dealing with Desmond Ridder. Okay, Desmond Ridder last season did throw more than Mariota. That's great news for outlooks. I totally understand. But when you look at just the preseason snaps, Ridder plays 17 snaps, okay? Kyle Pitts plays 9 of them and gets 1 target on 9 attempts. My point, I understand the production. We can't really look at it, but my point is like he's not even a full-time player. Michael Pruitt, Jonnu Smith were getting snaps with the first team. Pitts was getting rotated in. I think Arthur Smith, when he thought about having Kyle Pitts, he thought of him more as a, could he develop into an all-around tight end? But he probably can't block like he needs to, which keeps him off the field. So I am not interested in taking him where he goes at ADP. But Sky, what's your thoughts about Kyle Pitts this season?
Totally agree, man. Super bummed. Everybody knows the potential. Everybody knows the talent. We're all looking forward to it and excited. But let's just be real. This is year 3. Came out gangbusters with 1,000 yards and broke Ditka's record, whatever, and did great things as a rookie, but he had 1 touchdown. Okay, he's got to regress for touchdowns in year 2. He'll get better, whatever. 2 touchdowns, and he missed 7 games. 300 yards receiving, Bob, just not going to get it done. So I'm concerned about that. I think they should just give up at him at tight end and put him at slot or something. Like they did wonders the last 2 years with Cordero Patterson, you didn't even mention Cordero Patterson in their weapons. He's another guy that can catch passes and do other things that had been leading this offense the last 2 seasons because Kyle Pitts isn't panning out necessarily. Tyler Algiers in there as well to mix up the back. He played great last year as a rookie too. So I'm fading him all the way. Honestly, Bob, there's guys like Pat Freiermuth, Evan Ingram. You and I have talked about Chikakonkwo a bunch. Love me some David Njoku, maybe Higbee, Juwan Johnson, Cole Kmet. All these high upside guys, I can't put them ahead of Kyle Pitts because he's like that little gold nugget at the end of the rainbow that could be amazing, but he's my 7th tight end right now. And I might knock him out of my top 10. I don't know what to do. I mean, it doesn't feel like he's going to be top 10 with those other guys out of volume, but we know the talent's there. So pretty nervous about Kyle Pitts, and I might rank him higher than he finishes or whatever, because I'm scared, but I'm just not going to be drafting him anywhere.
So, Mr. Scampers, thanks for joining us. Well, he got a little taste of James Conner. We appreciate you being on, buddy. Kyle Pitts, right now today, I have him ranked 98th overall. That's 31 spots lower than his ADP. So, just lightly saying I am fading him isn't even close. I actually don't have him in my top 7. I'm closer to 9. And let's see. We'll break down maybe later about
half or full.
Full
PPR. Full PPR. I'm just double checking real quick. So he's about 75 or so. ECR 62 ADP. So yeah, you're way down there. And I don't have an overall rankings right now. I'm doing it positionally, but I can't imagine he's probably closer to where you're at than where the experts are at in my ranking. Although I don't have a cumulative 150 doing it individually, but as my 7th tight end, that's not good news.
Yeah, I hear you on that. That's why it's a fade. All right, let's go on to the next guy. It's Najee Harris. I actually early on in the process was a little bit optimistic about Najee, and I'm actually not even low. I'm only 1 spot lower than ADP. I have him at 30 as in my top 150. He is, I just lied to you. I have him at 30. His ADP is 30. So why is he a faller? Well, the first thing I kind of noticed was Kenny Pickett didn't play a lot, only 7 snaps. But Najee Harris played 5. Jalen Warren played 2. Okay, that seems about right for what you would expect. But when you watch Jalen Warren, he takes 1 touch to the house. Najee Harris on his 2 touches just kind of gets you those 3 yards. And so the biggest thing with Najee, and when we look at, if we can go back in a time machine and remember Zeke Elliott just last year, what really happened was that he lost so much work to Tony Pollard. And that's what really killed him. He started over the years, they started seeding work. He wasn't getting that incredible volume. And the same thing, Najee, of course, is a younger, better player. The offensive line for the Steelers is better. But when you're drafting in the 2-3 turn range, when you have to take him, you have to think in the back of your mind, is there a chance that Jalen Warren starts getting more work similar to Tony Pollard? And you watch the play in the preseason, you're like, how are they going to not give this kid more work when he's that explosive? And then you also factor in that Najee's big season, he was basically a glorified receiver because he got so many checkdowns from Ben Roethlisberger, which did not happen last year, which contributed to his downfall. And that's not going to happen. They added Allen Robinson. Now they have 3 really good receivers that are demand targets to an extent. I know Robinson's a little bit older now, but he's still going to demand more than like a target and a half that Sims did last year. I guarantee no one could even name the 3rd receiver last year for the Steelers after Chase Claypool was traded. But then you have also Pat Freiermuth. So I'm just no longer as excited. I was actually ahead of ADP. I've dropped him down to ADP. I probably still might get a little Najee, but I'm not going to take him at the 2-3 turn anymore. I'm going to take guys like Kenneth Walker and Mixon and those type of players. But what's your thoughts on Najee Harris in 2023, Sky?
Man, this is a super sad panda for me, man. I've been a Najee guy since he came out. Love his story. He's a Bay guy like I am, whatever. I'm rooting for the kid all the way up and down as a person and a player. But in fantasy, I'm starting to fade as well, Bob. There's 2 sides of the coin. I'll try to get through this as quickly as I can. I know you love some throwback names, so let me give you 2 real quick. Steelers references. Maybe this will be a Jalen Warren, Najee Harris comparison heading into this year. Let me give you Jerome Bettis. Obviously, the Bus Hall of Famer. Maybe that's Najee Harris-ish. How about Willie Parker back in the day, who would take a carry, 80 yards, catching passes. He was excellent as that thunder and lightning. That could be Jalen Warren, a nice 62-yard touchdown there. And I agree, Najee looked like a little bit of a plotter. Don't like that his efficiency went down. He's had 10 touchdowns in both of his seasons, though, Bob. I love that. We know the Steelers want to run. They're going to go through Najee Harris. 6th last year in opportunity share and 8th in total touches all season in running backs. I love that. Now, 2 different seasons. Last year before Kenny Pickett came in, they were doing all sorts of experiments. The Steelers were horrible the first half of the season, right? Najee Harris was way out of there. Second half of the season, he was RB7 in half-point PPR over the last 9 games. He had 0 games with 20 carries through the first half of the season. 0 games with 20 carries in the first half, 5 games with 20-plus carries in the second half. So they started picking him up. I think Kenny Pickett, now with a full offseason, gets a big resurgence here. Obviously, your boy George Pickens is going to open it up. Deontay Johnson is still very good. I think we're just fading him in fantasy. But nonetheless, Steelers are going to be much better on offense in general. I think that helps Najee. But, Bob, I'm a Najee guy, and I've got him at RB23 right now, which is super disappointing.
I think that's why I'm at ADP. I don't think I'm below ADP, but he's just someone that I'm starting to notice the trend, and that's why I'm going to fade him there. Let's jump down to another player, and it's Juju Smith-Schuster. So this is a guy who right now today I actually took him and I moved him significantly down, but 2 rounds down in my rankings, but I still have him a little ahead of ADP. 101st overall, his ADP is 109. Now with Juju, the reason why I kind of started thinking to myself, probably don't want to be too high on him is number one, if you just watch that preseason game, there is no alpha one. Like if you look at the 6 of 9 attempts from Mac Jones, 52 yards, no touchdowns, 11 snaps. Juju played 11 snaps, got 1 target. Devontae Adams, 11 snaps, 0 targets. You know who actually looked the best? Kendrick Bourne, who, by the way, congratulations, is now in my top 150 because I actually think there is a chance who Kendrick Bourne just 2 years ago was actually a fantasy asset at some points during the year.
Let's go.
There is no guarantee that Juju walks into that building and becomes the number one. And now it's starting to get to a point where I'm not going to get aggressive on him anymore because you could see in the games, they're not just going to Juju. It's not like he's getting peppered with targets. And so at this point, I think it's more of a crapshoot than anything. And I'd rather be at or lower than ADP on him. So what's your thoughts about Juju Smith-Schuster?
Stole my thunder, man. I mean, I can't really say it better than you just did. Take away what we remember him doing early on in his career with Antonio Brown, Big Ben, and the Steelers. He's not been the same, period. Yes, he had a nice stretch before he got hurt with the Chiefs a couple years ago. 100 targets last year. That's fine. About 1,000 yards. I mean, it was a quietly good season, but just 3 touchdowns. I don't like that. And with the Patriots offense, we're just not going to see that type of volume. We're not going to see that type of scoring opportunity and high-level offense. I don't like that at all. He's outside my top 50 wide receivers right now. Love the Kendrick Bourne drop, dude. I put Kendrick Bourne on the map like 2 years ago when nobody cared about him. Still hasn't happened quite, so I'm not going to fully claim it yet. But it's nice to see him coming in, and he is a good player. He could be the number one, and he's a great blocker. One thing I'll give Juju that Bill Belichick's going to care about is that he is a good blocker in the run game there. So they always used to praise him for that in Pittsburgh. So he'll be on the field a lot, but he could be the number 2. Juju's just another guy that, like, amongst everyone else in that territory, I'm not going to be drafting him.
Yeah, the other aspect of this, too, is if you notice that Kendrick Bourne was in the doghouse, right? And it reminds me a little bit of a lesser extent, Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco when he went to the doghouse, earned his way back. Darius Slayton was not a favorite of Brian Daboll early on. He earned his way back and became an asset down the stretch, and now he's a starter. I think Bourne, there's something going on there. Like, he clearly lost favor with them last year, and now it's like, okay, we're going to put him back on the field. Tyquan Thornton hasn't worked out yet either, and Devontae Parker's been, as much as I would like to be optimistic about him, he's been very inconsistent as well. So I do think there's something here, and I'd rather take a later round shot on a Bourne who you could get your last pick and see how it shakes out versus taking Juju over some other premier wide receivers in this range. Let's jump on to the next player. It's Christian Watson. So I know it's preseason action, so we have to be very obvious about this. But the first thing you got to notice about the Packers when you're watching their games is they are keying on the run game. It's mostly A.J. Dillon right now, but they played 17 snaps, 8 pass attempts. So you're starting to see them protecting a little bit more. Remember, Matt LaFleur is literally bromance. His bromance is Kyle Shanahan. Okay. Yeah. People think that Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan were tied together for a decade before Matt LaFleur went to the Rams for a little, and then he went on and became the Tennessee OC, and then he got the head coaching job. But he's a Kyle Shanahan guy. And when you think Shanahan, you think for the longest time, you play off the run game. And the thing with Matt LaFleur is he had Aaron Rodgers. So you can't tell an MVP we're going to base the offense around the run game. Well, now you have Jordan Love, and we're starting to see it in the preseason. So the pass attempts are not as high, even with the snap counts being at 17, only 8 pass attempts. The other problem is Christian Watson plays 17 snaps. He has 0 targets. There's going to be weeks where this guy completely blanks. Like right now today, Christian Watson going 51st overall in ADP. Like you're basically taking him at the 4-5 turn. And this guy could give you offers, like legitimately because of the routes he kind of runs. You have Romeo Doubs, Luke Musgrave, the running backs out of the backfield. You've got Christian Watson to basically take the top off the field. You're going to run into a lot of inconsistent weeks. So I think he's a big time fade for me at that spot. And we're starting to see it in the preseason. So Sky, what's your thoughts? I actually have him at 73rd overall. That's 22 spots lower than ADP. So what's your thoughts on Christian Watson?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm a big Romeo Doubs guy. And I think the Packers and Aaron Rodgers were also until he got hurt. Then he got hurt and Christian Watson came up. Obviously, we know he caught like 7 touchdowns in 3 games or something stupid. That obviously won't keep up. I will say he was 4th. Christian Watson was 4th last year in yards after catch behind Jalen Waddle. So obviously that's impressive, but we know that Rodgers is throwing those bombs. I don't necessarily see Jordan Love doing it. This is kind of like a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin light situation for me this year, where I think the hype is around Christian Watson because of what we saw, and rightfully so. The kid's awesome. Like, no knock on him necessarily, but I'd rather wait 4 or 5 rounds and just get Romeo Doubs, who I think is going to have more work. It immediately came out the first practice with Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs. It came out that they were hitting it right away, caught a touchdown right there in the first game. So I like that connection a lot. And I think the eyes are going to be on Christian Watson and having Romeo Doubs a little more open in the slot there. So I'm probably just going to fade Christian Watson at ADP. I'm with you, Bob. I'm going to fade him a bit and then probably just go get Romeo Doubs as like my 5th wide receiver who did have some spurts before he got hurt last year.
All right, the last one I got to talk about. This isn't going to be as notable, and I apologize. Ending on a little bit of a thud. It's Michael Mayer, and I just want to talk about him because he's inside our top 200, currently on Razzball.com ADP. He's going as the 22nd tight end off the board. This is more of a PSA. This guy's a rookie tight end, number 1. On an offense, by the way, led by Jimmy G, which is going to probably be centered around the run game, most likely. You also have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Jacoby Myers there. He played 5 snaps out of 9 total for Jimmy Garoppolo, which isn't terrible, but he's a rookie tight end who's going to be a part-time player, okay? If you need dart throw late-round tight ends, Jake Ferguson, Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, and Logan Thomas are the 4 guys I'd rather take there. And those guys are more veteran players. But just a reminder, these rookie tight ends take time. So if you are in best ball formats, if you're in the 20th rounds and you're going much deeper than a typical redraft league, I don't see the upside from Michael Mayer this season. I'm fading him. He's already a part-time player as a rookie, so I'm going to take him off my draft board completely. But Sky, your thoughts about Michael Mayer and maybe the Raiders as a whole this season?
Yeah, don't love Michael Mayer. I'm actually okay with Dalton Kincaid. Sam Laporta. I think rookie tight ends for those guys in their situations, I actually like them a lot more. Mayer's, could be filling a hole. Obviously, Waller's out of town. They got Austin Hooper, who was fun for fantasy on accident for 2 years in Atlanta. So he obviously can play. He's a pro, whatever. So he's gonna have to battle for that. Look, man, I'm a Niner fan and I've been knocking Jimmy since he came to San Francisco. Not feeling it. I don't think the Raiders are going to be very good this year. And which is another reason I fade Josh Jacobs, whatever. Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams. Everybody else on that team, I'm not interested at for what they're doing. So not much interest there. Bob, we didn't talk about it at the top of the show, and I am curious to get your thoughts quick while we have another minute or two on the show here. The Jonathan Taylor hype. Let's just have some fun for 5 seconds. Let's daydream. If he were to get traded, where would you want to see him traded? Take logic totally out of it. Where would you want to see him? Where would you want to see him get traded? And where do you think he might get traded if he does? Obviously, it comes out right away that, okay, he can now seek trades. And then somebody immediately comes out and goes, no, we're never going to trade Jonathan Taylor. We'll see what happens. Nonetheless, it's something now we have to worry about at the 9th hour, I should say, with about 2 weeks left in fantasy draft season before we get going. Look, man, this is not something I'm interested in dealing with on my draft board in the, 2nd round. I mean, like, that's a little bit nervous. I'm going to be fading him everywhere. So where would you want to see him go pie in the sky? And where do you logically think he might land based on needs around the league?
I have absolutely no idea. Like, so you have to factor in. You're telling me if just live in la la land.
Yeah, just go crazy.
Yeah, have fun. Buffalo would be a really good landing spot because of the offense. The Bengals, see you later, Joe Mixon. Thanks for the pay cut. We're just going to cut you instead. The Eagles, hey, DeAndre Swift, you're a nice player, but we'd rather have a guy we know is a grinder. Like, those things would be awesome. But realistically, like, Miami Dolphins probably make the most sense from a team need. They have these older running backs like Wilson. Well, Wilson's not even that old. He's like 27. But these other backs that are better as backups who could be starters if you need them. I would have loved to see him be reunited. I've talked about this with you before with the Panthers, with Frank Wright, but they spent the money on Miles Sanders already. But that would have been a nice fit, logical shift over from the Colts back to Frank Wright. Teams like the Chiefs, who have Isaiah Pacheco, don't have a lot of invested in money in a running back, but these teams don't have the money. So if you look, we have to look at the salary cap. If you look at cap space and you start looking at the teams at the top, you're probably looking at the Arizona Cardinals, but you're getting JT as a rental probably. Is he going to sign long term? The Cardinals might make sense if they want to move on from him. Ironically, like the Dallas Cowboys have a lot of cap space still. Could you imagine a 1-2 punch with Tony Pollard? That'd be fun. I know I'm listing up. Honestly, that'd be a team that actually would be really cool. But this is the thing. They already spent the money, would be the Lions. Like, imagine putting Gibbs and JT in the backfield instead of David Montgomery. But those teams all have their running backs. So, I think another team that you brought up too was the Chicago Bears. They don't really have that much invested in the running back position. I don't see it. Now, the connection with the Bears makes sense because the DC is now the head coach for the Bears. So that could be something. There could be something there as well. But what's your thoughts? I know I just named like 32 of the
No,
32
it's fine. It's fine. Where does Minnesota land on that?
On the list of wants or
no, the cap?
They're low, 20th. They only have $8 million in cap.
All right. Well, I mean, you could probably get Jonathan Taylor for Dalvin Cook just signed for 8. So no, the cap doesn't matter. I know. Yeah, Taysom Hill taught us everything we didn't need to know about the cap. I'm more just throwing it out there, like guys that could use a space, just pie in the sky stuff, because I don't think he even leaves Indy. But if he does leave Indy, it's going to shake things up. So let's end it with this. Okay, there's a big question mark. Doesn't matter if he goes or if he stays. We don't know what's going to happen where he lands. Bob, you're on the clock tomorrow night. It's the league, right? And you're in the, I don't know, 13th, 14th, 15th pick, something. You got your boy, whatever. You got somebody as a wide receiver. You're looking at running back. JT's on the board. Are you picking him? Are you not picking him? What are you nervous about overall? And at what point does it become like, I got to get Jonathan Taylor?
I would say Najee Harris range, like right around 30. I have him at 24th right now, which is lower than ADP, but I don't like, I'd rather have, I know Mixon, like the other problem with Taylor is that there is a rookie mobile quarterback starting. Okay.
Yep.
And I've talked about this all off season long. When you look at the history of rookie quarterbacks, the RB1 finishes are fine, but top 6 running back finishes haven't happened in the last 5 years when you have a prominent rookie QB. And on top of that, he's mobile. So that's a double dip. And I think right there, that dings him in general. Now you're going to be dealing with contract. And I forget who said this, and I would love to give credit to the person, but they did bring up the fact, what happens if he gets banged up? Do you think a guy who's already pissed off about his contract is going to fight through injuries to stay? Like, I don't even want him. I'd rather take Mixon. I'd rather take Walker. I'd rather take Ridley, Allen, Higgins. You could start talking about Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, like those kind of receivers. I'd rather just take them. Like, I don't even want to deal with it. But
totally agree.
And so the trade demand is kind of weird. Like, why can't they just give him what Barkley got? Here's a couple extra million incentives. Go out there and go get it. Like, I think he would have been fine with it.
Totally.
Like, give him he's on the last year of his deal. So it just seems really, really weird that they're telling him now, after all this, and after Jacobs returned, Barkley got the incentives. Oh, but you got to walk. Super strange. I don't like it. And
his whole thing this offseason about is like fake injury. Like they're making shit up, but he's not actually hurt. And now this comes out. Last week, he was away from the team for a week for personal reasons. Then his first day back, he is just allowed to go talk trades now. Like it feels sticky, man. I love the player. Absolutely. But I can't handle it.
31 personnel is my favorite comment from Mr. Scampers. Like,
nice.
How awesome. Just have 3 running backs back there. Just figure it out, Eagles. Like, get it done. Get some guys back there. I mean, I would love
my I'm not gonna lie, my Madden offenses look pretty sick, dude. Bring me back to the Chip Kelly offense at Oregon. 6 running backs, half a hybrid tight end receiver. I'll do that all day long.
When you talk about JT though, he's on a last year of his deal, right? So that's the issue. You'd almost have to be a win now team. Like the Jets, prime example. Do the Jets regret going after Dalvin Cook because they could have had JT for a loan, but they would have to give up compensation for him more than money. So,
but again, it doesn't. The regret thing doesn't work because it wasn't in the moment. It's not like we took Dalvin Cook instead of Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan
No,
Taylor
I
wasn't
get it.
available. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But the other aspect of this too is like, what's a win now football team? Like the Miami Dolphins, you could make the argument are win now,
Yeah.
and they
There's
haven't
just
need.
so many guys there. Yeah, I hear you.
And they have a 11.9
The
million.
Chiefs, bro. The Chiefs make sense, which is insane. But like,
Yeah, and the
I
Chiefs
mean,
don't have the
holy
money,
shit. I know.
but they just And the other thing, the irony of the Chiefs would be that they did take CEH ahead of him, and now
Yeah,
they
right.
can
I
make
know,
up
right?
for it. That'd be funny. But I think like the Minnesota Vikings don't have necessarily the funds for it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like Alexander Madison is a nice player. They gave him some money, the decent money, nothing crazy, but they're a team that like imagine if they could turn Kirk Cousins into
Bro.
the secondary option with JT. Like last year, Dalvin. I don't understand why they leaned all into Cousins instead of Cook.
Well,
They
because
tried.
it's a quarterback. That's what the NFL does.
I
But
know.
Kirk Cousins is like the fourth highest paid quarterback in the NFL or something stupid. Like when you look at the list, I don't have it in front of me, but the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks, I saw it a while back. It's like the best quarterbacks in the NFL and then Kirk Cousins. And I'm not saying he's bad. He's underrated for what his capability actually is. And he's arguably got the best receiver in the game. I get all that. But if he took a $5 million pay cut, which to a quarterback's nothing, making $40 million a year, and they gave JT 3 more on top of what he's got and cover that cap. The Vikings, the Chiefs, some team like that, whatever, that could get another step would be insane. I don't see it happening. I just want to have some fun at the end of the show here because I've been thinking about it all day.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about it, but it would be kind of fun. Or you just put him and Christian McCaffrey in the same background and call it good.
I know I think it's going to take an injury, right? Like if one of the better teams suffer, like Cam Akers goes down, and the Rams start off 3-2.
They have nothing either, though.
I could. But the thing, like the cap doesn't mean anything. Like they literally, like we did a cap episode. If you watched us throughout the offseason, we did all these fancy cap episodes. We thought we were so slick, and the next thing you know, the Saints are like, "Oh, Derek Carr, here's millions," and we're like, "Where did you get this money? It makes no sense." They just move the money around. It's just like, whatever. But it's just. I think from a fantasy football perspective, it's going to have to be an injury. The other aspect of this, though, what about the Colts? Like, what about the Colts running backs? Like, is Zach Moss like maybe the next guy? I know he's dealing with an injury right now, but like who? Deion Jackson,
Evan Hall. Evan Hall is probably the guy which nobody talks about. He's a rookie they drafted. I like him a lot, actually, though. He did very well. He tested well, whatever. He led all FBS running backs in receptions and receiving yards last year. So maybe not a 3-down back, but certainly a Nyheim Hines, if you will, that could take some work too. So the Colts have guys. I think that's why they're playing this game where they're going to go Philly light and use 4 running backs who nobody knows to get the job done versus Jonathan Taylor, right, who they have to pay. But yeah, Zach Moss is there. They have Deion Jackson, who did okay in a game or two season ago, so he's an option. Kenyon Drake came over. Great throwback there. Yeah, so they have bodies, and I think that's why they're kind of like, Jonathan, you're amazing, obviously, but it's the NFL. We hate running backs all of a sudden. So tough shit.
I wonder what they feel about Zach Moss, right? He's out 4 to 6 weeks. That was 3 weeks. That was 3 weeks ago, right? So he might be ready for week 1. He was kind of the early favorite to be the number 2. But it's a broken arm. It's not like he hurt a knee or anything. It's a broken arm. So I guess he could probably be back. But like, is Kenyon Drake the guy we take a late round flyer on right now? Because like Drake had his moment with the Ravens, right? So like he did have some moments.
Dude, Drake's been awesome in his career. He was good with the Raiders, the Cardinals for a little bit. The Dolphins, when he came up, Drake's fine. Alabama running back, whatever. I mean, there's always pedigree there.
Is that our advice? Is that our advice right now to take Kenyon Drake with your last pick, just in case? I think I don't know. I honestly think I would probably still take Moss. I don't know yet because
I'm not a chance. I'm gonna go Kenyon Drake just because as my last pick in a best ball, or I'm gonna go Evan Hull because I know that he's got the pedigree at least from last year in college. But Bob, what I'm hearing you say is draft Kenyon Drake in the 2nd round instead of Jonathan Taylor. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. All right. That's all we got today, folks. This is once again the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I want to thank my host and sarcastic guy over there, Sky Guasco. Thank you for bringing that up. That was good banter. We needed get it off our chest just to get that out there. We've decided that JT has nowhere to go, and that, the backup running back for the Indianapolis Colts
He's staying. I just think it's fun to walk through because people are making decisions.
No, you're right. You're right. And make sure you go check out Sky. And Sky, you got a couple articles coming up. Tell the people where they can find your content and where they can follow you across the board.
I do. Dropping a bunch here. Yeah, I've been silent all summer here putting them together, but I got a bunch of top fives coming out. My booms, my busts, my sleepers, my deep sleepers, my bounce backs, my must-haves, my fades, all of that coming out in the next 2 weeks. I'm very excited down the stretch here. So everything's on rasball.com. Of course, go listen to the podcast as well. It's a Rasball Fantasy Football Podcast. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, you can check us out. And then, of course, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss any alerts. And then, Bob, one more time, give the people a preview of what they can catch every single Sunday, starting off on September 10th.
Yeah, make sure you follow us at Rasball Fantasy on YouTube because we're doing our Sunday live start sit show. We're super excited this year. Once again, 3 hours before kickoff, we'll be on at 7 a.m. PST all the way up till kickoff, answering your start sit questions. We'll also be doing injury updates, weather updates, everything you need to know up to kickoff to set your lineups. So make sure you follow us at Rasball Fantasy on YouTube. Once again, I'm your host, Bobby LaMarco. Make sure you go follow me at Bobby LaMarco on Twitter. We are out of here, folks.